Why am I holding a potato? Why am I holding a potato?
Well, maybe it's because it was St. Patrick's Day on Friday.
Yes, I guess it is because it was St. Patrick's Day. I got to thinking about potatoes. Over the weekend, I found a couple of videos. I wanted to hop into the computer and kind of just tell everybody just how good potatoes are. Hi, my name is Ryan. This is High Carb Regenerator. Welcome to my channel. And today I wanted to hop into the computer. I wanted to show you some videos. I'm actually going to start off with the con study, or actually himity. I'll explain it more when I get into the computer, but I just really wanted to emphasize how healthy and how good the potato is for you, and how much weight has actually been lost on eating a potato. It's surprising. Now, I myself has lost about 145 pounds. Potato has been a pretty good staple of mine, and so I just decided, what the hell, I'll make a video about it. Let's hop into the computer and let's see what happens.
All right, so here we are in the computer, and I wanted to start off with a couple of articles. There was a couple articles that I'm trying to find that I could not find. There's a couple of potato studies in the Soviet Union, which a lot of people thought was just woo-woo. So then they did the exact studies over again about potatoes in Russia when it wasn't the Soviet Union, and a couple other countries did it. I can't find those. But one of interest was one that kind of happened by accident. And there was this Dr. Hinhidi in Denmark. I think it was Denmark, right? So during World War I, it was thought that the people were having all the stress related like heart attacks and whatever, because of the war and the cancers and all that kind of stuff. And the weight was increasing. There was a lot of bad things happening with the people. And it was just assumed that because there was a war going on, that was the reason for them having these issues. But that wasn't actually the case. So what happened was, it was believed even back then that protein, you know, they were really starting to think that protein was the only thing that we needed to eat. And Hinhidi actually proved that was completely wrong. So what happened was basically 3 million people. Did I link this article? They do. All right, I'm going to link this down below. I don't want to read everything. This is not story time, but I wanted to talk about this. So basically 3 million people went on the potato only diet, and it was the healthiest that Denmark had ever been. Why am I doing this video? I have no idea. I got some potatoes yesterday and I figured let's make a video about it. The only thing is in every single one of these studies, every single one, and I have seen the Soviet, I have seen the Russian ones, I can't find them. You usually have to know the name of the person who conducted it to actually have a chance of finding the articles. But they all have potatoes and fat for half, you know, and this was for half a year or more. There was some barley, you know, it was grains basically. It was a starch solution basically with fat. But what ended up happening is they got rid of all the diseases basically. I mean, it was like a miracle cure. And a lot of the other countries in the surrounding areas were having it, you know, they starting to kind of get jealous, basically, because why was all this good stuff happening? So here's the article about that. I'll link this down below. But I do know that they had the least fatality rate in recorded history. And then there was a spinoff to that. Now, this one is the con study. This one you hear mentioned by McDougall a lot, like a lot. The only thing is, right, it was only 2 people, but the Hinhidi one was 3 million people. And, you know, it was potatoes, fat, and if you could get other grains, it was fruits and vegetables. Okay, so that was the one previous to this. And this is basically the same thing, but they wanted to test if you could have a high enough nitrogen level. It wasn't really a weight loss thing. The other one actually technically wasn't a weight loss thing either. It's just they were running out of animals, so they started whatever they were, I guess cultivating or whatever. I don't know how you know, whatever. That they would just take the grain that they were feeding these animals and they would just eat it themselves, and they sold off the animals in Denmark. This wasn't about that. This was just to see if the nitrogen or protein, whatever you want to call it, levels were high enough. I just find it ironic that they were eating 120 to 150 grams daily of fat. That's like 1,900 calories basically just from fat. And they weren't limiting anything as far as I can find. I haven't been able to find a full study. And then it just talks about how they like how they liked it cooked. And patient B, which was the female, started losing weight way too fast, so they had to add even more fat. But as you can see, that the nitrogen levels were completely fine. So they had enough protein. And I know that the full study does exist, and people who have read it have said that these athletes really didn't even want to come off of it. Like, it was perfect for them. They had no interest in coming off the potato-only diet.
There was a lot of emphasis on eating low-fat, high-carbohydrate, and things have changed quite a lot. We're realizing that we can eat more good fats, but what happened is carbohydrates were labeled kind of
this good fat thing. Like, sold a bill of goods.
Like the bad guy. You know, every good story you got to have the bad guy, and so carbohydrates have been labeled that. And potatoes being part of that group. But really, it's not the case. Potatoes are so manageable as a carbohydrate source. You've got single serving sizes. You've got a whole food. A lot of people are interested in whole foods these days. And so what can be closer than a potato out of your backyard?
And interestingly enough, you can't do that. You can't replicate this with rice. It wouldn't be possible. You couldn't do the Hinhidity, you couldn't do the Russian study, you couldn't do the Soviet study, you couldn't. I mean, there's been a lot of potato-only studies, a lot of them. Matter of fact, if they do this whole Mars thing, they're actually going to be sending out potatoes to Mars because they're so complete, right? So you couldn't do this with rice. You couldn't do you can do the rice diet, but you have to add things to the rice diet. Otherwise, you might be dead. But you can do it with potato.
Out of the Northwest, that's a whole food. So you've got the skin that has fiber. It's high in vitamin C.
Maybe I'm making this video too because it was St. Patrick's Day on Friday. And I'm Irish. My hat is Irish. Made in China. But maybe that's it. I don't know. Maybe it provoked this.
A tremendous source of potassium, which is really good for our blood pressure. It has a little bit of iron too, and there's a lot of iron deficiency in meat.
Speaking of iron, it's crazy how high the hemoglobin, my hemoglobin anyways, goes when I'm eating a lot of potatoes. It's ridiculous. Matter of fact, the doctor said to me, if I didn't know what you were doing right now, I would think that you were doing EPO.
In the United States. So potatoes I see them as a powerhouse food, and I see them as a natural food for our blood pressure.
People should eat more potatoes.
I think they should. I like to dice them up, steam them, and then serve them with a little bit of sauteed meat and vegetable. So they make
I mean, you can skip that part. Skip it. I mean, the sauteed vegetables, whatever. I did that yesterday, matter of fact. It was really good, but I didn't use any fat.
Really good.
It's a myth that you can't saute things without having oil. It's just a total myth. I did it yesterday. I do it almost every day. Do it every day, right? And it works just fine every time. Unless you're not, you do have to pay more attention. I will tell you that. You have to be in the kitchen. So if you're one of these people that likes to chop up a bunch of cabbage and chop up a bunch of onions, chop up a bunch of whatever and throw it in a pan and just put a little oil in there and just kind of, go away while it sautés, you are not going to be in that world. But it is possible to do without oil.
Carbohydrate source. And, I really have a childhood memory with potatoes where before my family would go
shot them out of a gun.
Skiing.
I hate that. I can't stand it. Shoot something else out of the potato gun. Oh, it's such a waste. Or use like black potatoes that nobody can eat.
My mom would make what was called skier's breakfast, and it was always potatoes with some eggs, a little bit of cheese, a little bit of vegetable.
Cheese.
And we would eat this, and it would stay with us very well. Good complex carbohydrates.
Good stuff.
Potatoes are good stuff.
All right, there you go. So this dude lost like 120 pounds on eating potatoes only.
He created the photo, and
I'm just showing the results of this. I probably remember to link all this stuff down below.
Side by side, standing facing the camera now.
The only problem I have with this dude is now, from what I've seen of his videos, he's all talking on CECO now, like calories in, calories out, even though he lost all of his weight eating unlimited amounts of potatoes. He's now telling you to limit your food. Doesn't make sense.
No?
But anyway, so this is what to do. This is 100 days in too. So 100 days of nothing but potatoes. And he went from 151.7 kilograms to 119. What is that? Like, that's almost 100 pounds right there. I don't know what the hell this is about. So let's do this
segment
together.
on the other day on CBC Canada here. It shows
This guy doesn't make videos anymore. It's unfortunate.
this potato extract had been developed in Montreal, McGill University, and it was shown to reduce obesity in mice. So I'm just going to show you various clips in my.
The only problem is you have with some of these studies is, like, if you look at the study was studying the only thing is when you look at the study that for leptin, they made mice and rats lose weight like crazy by just adding leptin to their, I think they were injecting leptin. But when they did it with humans, it had no results. Matter of fact, I think it made people fatter. So this is why I'm not a huge fan of these studies done on rats and mice, but like the studies that I showed previously were done on actual humans for human food. So I think it's a lot more relevant.
Comments on that as we go. Okay, let's check that out.
Whether French fried or sliced and salted in a bag, potatoes don't have the reputation of helping you lose weight.
That's because they're deep fried in oil and tons of fat on it.
But it's still weird to me that these people every time in every one of these studies lost weight on potatoes, even though there was a lot of fat in the mix. It just doesn't make any sense, but they still lost it, right?
McGill University researchers say an extract from potatoes has been shown to prevent obesity in mice.
Mice that were genetically prone to develop obesity.
And this isn't me advocating for high fat at all. It's just almost confusion, because when I add fat into my diet, I don't lose fat, I gain it. But in these studies, everybody that had all this, 120, 150 grams of fat, I mean, it's crazy. And they still lost, the woman especially, they were kind of concerned with how much weight she was losing
when they were fed a high-fat diet. And to our astonishment, there was an inhibition of about 50% of the weight gain.
It's all because potatoes are rich in antioxidants known as polyphenols. They're also found in blueberries and red wine. Polyphenols act as an anti-inflammatory
They're supporting red wine.
And help block the absorption of fat from food.
See the meat and crap cheese that they're putting on this stuff? It's ridiculous.
It's not even a potato anymore. It's just like a grease. It's like a sponge of grease is basically what you're turning this into. But somehow still people lose weight on the potato diet.
The potatoes.
But researchers caution you can't just pile potatoes onto your plate and expect to get the same results.
Okay. I mean, there has been studies on this. Actual human studies on potato only since the I think it's since 1850, I think, was the first one, because they were starting to notice that Americans in cities were getting fat. Americans in not cities, like in rural areas, suburbs really wasn't around in the 1800s. So you were either in the city or you weren't. The people who weren't in the city, they were not having weight issues whatsoever. It was the people, the sedentary life, right? So there is something to be said for exercising at some level. Now, these people weren't lifting weights. They weren't, on the Stairmaster. They weren't anything. They were just doing their day to day, like we're built to do, right? The reason you can adapt and overcome is because we are made to do that, So, I know I crack up thinking about this story. So my grandfather, he had 8 kids, right? And Irish. And so he decided to go, lived in Cleveland, but he went out to Western PA, and he bought a farm with a bunch of land and everything because he just thought it would be fun to have his kids out there, right? But it was still an operating farm, but he didn't want anything to do with that. So he had hired help. And one time he went out there with his family, and the hired help was there, and they were baling straw, and they were throwing it up into the loft. And apparently these guys that were, like 125 pounds were just one-arming, throwing these huge bales, like 100-pound bales or something like that, up into the loft. And then they did that for 8 hours, and then they went to the dance afterwards. I mean, this is crazy, right? So you're not gonna, you pretty much can eat anything at that point. But the human ability to live on this stuff, because most of these people did have a lot of potatoes in their diet because it's a cold climate, and they were able to function without their protein powders, without their paleo, without their keto, without their carnivore. They probably lived on a diet primarily of meat and potatoes, but meat was expensive, and they probably grew the meat, so they didn't want to. They cut away from their profits, so they probably didn't have a lot of meat. They probably had more of the potatoes. It's the point of my story.
The one dose of the potato extract is equivalent to eating 30 potatoes, 30 regular-sized table potatoes.
That would be a lot of carbs to pack into your diet.
That is wow. What? I mean, what? It's not even potatoes anymore. That is like a former potato in the form of grease with bacon on it is what they should call this. I mean, come on, man.
Notice how when they say carbs, they show deep fried French fries with cheese, gravy, and crap.
Cheese whiz. I mean, they got cheese whiz on this stuff, and they're calling it a potato. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. They never turn it around, right? It's never there's fat on the potato. It's always the carbs. Whatever. I'm preaching to nobody here.
Up on it.
I'm not calling you nobody. It's just like this is not. Unfortunately, yet getting into the mainstream, it's got to get out there, though.
I mean, come on.
But dietitians say while the
look at that shit. I mean, come on. This is a potato, right? Right here. This is a potato. And then they're talking about where'd it go? This. I mean, the grease is oozing. I mean, there's just no potato left, man. This is what do we got? Cheese whiz, onions, mushrooms, a fork, and some bacon. It.
But dietitians say while the lowly spud tends to get a bad rap, it's actually rich in nutrients like fiber.
We maybe are overlooking this nice starchy vegetable as a good healthy source too, and not just polyphenols, but vitamin C, which is also an antioxidant. There's great potassium, B vitamins. It's pretty nutrient packed.
Plant says she'd have to see more research before recommending potatoes to fight obesity.
It's already been done. Why reinvent the wheel that's already been invented? Oh shit! You know what? I think we got enough out of this. I don't think figuring out. Let's hear from McDougal.
In the newspaper about this guy, I think it started about 9 months ago up in Washington. A guy who went on an all potato diet. He did it out of protest. He was a potato farmer, went on an all potato diet out of protest.
I'm going to watch that guy
because everybody
next.
said such bad things about potatoes, and so he went on a diet for 60 days of nothing but potatoes, basically nothing but potatoes. And what happens is he lost 35 pounds and cholesterol dropped like 60 points. Typical things that happen when people go on starch-based diets. And this made national headlines. It was all over the internet and so on. And people thought it was something original. Actually, what he did was he copied behaviors that have been done by millions of people, not out of choice, and also an experiment that was published in 1928. In 1928, they did an experiment. I don't think you could get it by an ethics board today.
I had no idea they talked about this. So this is that Kahn study that I had showed you before, but it's interesting how he presents the Kahn study comparatively to the actual Kahn study itself.
Do these to people. What they did in this experiment in the 1920s is they took a man who was 25, a woman who was 28. They were very physically active. They were what you would call marathon runners.
I actually believe they were Olympic athletes from what I think that they were. I could be wrong. And
they housed them in a situation where they controlled all their food. And what they fed them was an all-potato diet. Basically, all they ate was potatoes for 6 months. Now, that's not entirely true. They ran into a problem. The problem is because they were so physically active, they had to add energy to their diet. So what they added was oil to the potatoes. Now,
okay, so this is not true. According to the paperwork that I just showed you, they started with fat. But it is weird because they didn't actually document the fat eaten. And initially they were making like fritters, potato fritters. And then the next day, or like maybe, I don't know, that maybe they alternated meals. I have no idea. But then they were also doing basically just mashed potatoes with a little bit of butter on it. And it was found towards a pretty like a month in that the people didn't really want the fritters anymore. They just wanted mashed potatoes.
You add oil, all you add is fat. You add no vitamins, no minerals, no fiber, no protein, nothing but oil. And so you dilute out the nutritional qualities of the potato. That was their diet for 6 months. Now, you can go to Google as soon as you get home. You can enter all potato diet and K-O-N, who's the author, or you can enter this scientific reference.
I'm just going to link it down below. So however many people watch this, go read the study. It's like a 259-page study, but you could only find like 3 pages of it. I'm sure you're able to find the whole thing, but I have not done it. But I haven't really like tried that hard.
And what will come up as the first entry in your Google search is...
The one I really would like to find is some of the Soviet and the Russian ones, because that was like mass scale. But again, it was, and I'm not saying I want to go on a French fry diet. I'm just saying like, why the fat? Like everybody adds fat to it. Like Hinhidity did, the Russians did, the Soviets did, this Kahn study, which I think was done in Poland, did. So they all do.
Is this particular study. And you click on it and it's free. You can read it. And when you read through the study, you'll find something interesting. At the end of the study, they make 2 profound statements about this man and woman. They say, number one, they did not tire of the all potato diet. They had no desire for change. I can relate to.
I really wish I could find this whole thing because I would love to read this. I know it's only 2 people and they were already athletically inclined people, but it's just interesting to me.
To that. I mean, I could easily live on a diet of potatoes.
I mean, I had potatoes yesterday, man. That stuff was rocking.
In fact, my favorite food when I was growing up was mashed potatoes, peas, and corn.
Not in the beans. Lima beans, yes, but peas.
All mixed together with some brown gravy. Of course, you know where the...
It's kind of funny. Back in my keto days, I was really irritated that I couldn't lose weight anymore. I initially lost weight like crazy. And then I started trying to work with this dude down in Kentucky. He's this bodybuilder. And I started working with him and I sent pictures of myself and he's like, "You're fat." And I said, "Well, yeah, really." And I could have told you that, right? I'm not paying you for, stupid statements. But one time he told me I couldn't even eat lima beans. Lima beans were too high in carbohydrates. Come on, man.
The brown gravy came from. But these days, Mary still makes that for me. Still one of my favorite evening meals. They did not tire of the all-potato diet. Number 2, they declared them in excellent health. The way they stated it was, even though they were both physically active, they were described as in good health on a diet in which the nitrogen protein was practically solely derived from potatoes. That shouldn't surprise you. I mean, there have been populations of tens of millions of people who had no choice but to live on all...
Exactly. All right, let's get to the, maybe I'll watch this one for a while. I don't know.
Today is the day that I share with you my results.
I actually did a potato only with her, but I gained weight. Now, the caveat is I did have a little bit of pastries because it was during Christmas. So.
Results from the 31-day Spud Fit Challenge that I just finished. Eating nothing but potatoes for the entire month of January. If you want to see the whole journey, I've got a playlist dedicated to the entire month of January. I filmed.
I'm also not. Somebody's going to ask in a comment question. I'm not planning on doing an only potato. I'm just giving you the information.
Every single day. Made a playlist out of it, so you can check that out down below. I'm going to link a whole bunch of stuff down below, especially for people that are new to my channel. Hello, my name is Janine. Peace. And I have a very complicated weight loss story, but in a nutshell, in a potato shell, potatoes have played such a huge role in my success. But I will...
She's actually got Hashimoto's, And it has been found that you can reverse Hashimoto's. Man, I forget which one. I did a video about this with basically a high carb, low fat. Man, I wish I knew what video it was, because I would link it, but I don't even remember. I've made so many.
Link down below some key videos for anybody that's new to this channel that wants to know a little bit more about my background and my story. So let's get to the results. I've got my notes here because I have a lot I want to share with you. I first want to go through the non-scale victories, and I know some of you are like, yawn. I just want to see how much weight you lost, and I'm leaving that to the end. I'm leaving the numbers to the end, and that's for a reason, because
I want to make you watch my whole video.
No, I'm just kidding. It's very important for amount I want. It doesn't matter if it's just a tiny amount or a big amount, which that's not likely to happen. But I'm not going to put any pressure on myself to have a certain amount of veggies at a certain time of day. It's just incorporating veggies to what I'm already doing. So this is potato reset.
This video is getting long enough, so
Style eating with potatoes and vegetables, minimal sauces.
She's got this one like I do it. I advocate buying her book, because she's got a couple really good recipes, but this one on the bottom left here is sweet potato, I think regular potato chili. That shit is on point, boy. That shit is real good. I know she's lost like 100 pounds. Unfortunately, I'm running out of time here, so I will link this down below. She's got a lot of good information. And here we go. This is the guy that went on nothing but potatoes for 2 months.
A potato commission, and I am probably the biggest potato lover there is out there. And to prove my point, how much I love potatoes, I ate nothing but potatoes for 60 days. I mean, literally nothing but potatoes. No toppings on them. You know, no salsa, no other vegetables, no sour cream.
I think that in and of itself is pointless. I mean, not the sour cream part, but I mean, come on, man.
No butter, nothing like that, just strictly potatoes.
But it does show that it can be done.
And what I was trying to do, the essence of this experiment was really to prove to the USDA.
I feel like I sound like I'm advocating for fat in this. It's not happening, but you know, I feel like I'm not, right? But I just, it does baffle the mind how all of them added in.
USDA or the federal government, that there's an amazing amount of nutrition in a potato. Because for a while there, and still even today, they're trying to restrict or exclude the potato from a lot of its nutrition programs. And it just doesn't make sense whatsoever. If you look at the reports, they'll talk about how the population is deficient in potassium, how we're deficient in vitamin C, how we're deficient in fiber. And if you look at a potato nutrition label, those are the exact strengths of the potato. And
it's got the vitamin Bs too. I mean, if you're looking for vitamin Bs, it's got them. It doesn't have 12, unless I guess it might have 12 if you don't clean it off, which I don't. I don't like to clean things off. So my vitamin B is actually usually pretty decent, even though I don't take vitamin B.
Particularly the high sodium diets that most Americans have today, potassium is so critical in kind of neutralizing that and creating good heart health. And so potatoes are amazingly nutritious for you. And I think that, you know, when I was eating just potatoes, I kind of proved that. And we documented it. We looked at, we did a kind of a pre-physical before I started eating potatoes. We did one kind of at the halfway point, and then the one at the end. And quite frankly, I knew there was a lot of nutrition in potato, but I had no idea.
If you read Pritikin book, I know I did a book review on Pritikin. If you did get the book, I think one of the biggest takeaways from Pritikin's, damn, I'm really pushing potatoes here. One of the biggest things from Pritikin's book is, you know, he said that you can have potatoes at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Kind of like the Asian people say that you can have rice at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So interchangeable, I guess. But he's not as big of a fan of rice, which I'm not into. Like I like rice.
What my health would be like at the end of 60 days. And quite frankly, I was hoping just to be alive. You know, that was good enough.
And if you're looking for like increased libido, or if your fertility issues are present or whatever, rice and potatoes, boy, That will change it up. I have not noticed the same result from pasta at all, but rice and potatoes, you know, like at a night when I have rice or potatoes, the next morning I get the expected results. But on a night of pasta, it's 50-50. So I definitely am more in the corner of rice or potato.
Enough for me. But it was a life changer when I saw the results. When I saw that I actually lost weight eating 20 potatoes a day, 2,200 calories of potatoes a day. I lost 21 pounds. My cholesterol dropped 67 points. I mean, you know, it's hard to get that big of a cholesterol drop using drugs, and here I was doing it with something healthy from the earth, the potato. My blood sugar came down, my triglycerides came down, every blood chemistry vital either.
I find it interesting because if you read the study, I can't believe I don't even have any up here, but it's not even a study. It's just a way of life of the Irish, because I'm Irish printed in China. But if you study that, they actually like this weird style. I actually kind of ended up cooking it the other day on accident, but they like this weird style of potato where I forget what they call it. There's a Gaelic name for it. But the inside would still be hard and the outside would be soft, and they like to eat them like that. I
stayed the same or got better eating just potatoes. And while, you know, my intent was to do this diet just to really kind of protest what the government was doing, it was life-changing for me. I mean, it made me much more aware of what I was eating and how that diet plays such an important role in just your overall health and your ability to have energy throughout the day, your ability to sleep well at night, your ability to think clearly. And
yeah. Rice and potatoes also, sleep is much better. I like pasta, but I really limit it. I don't really like quinoa. I don't like sweet potatoes. What other starch? I'm not against pasta, but I do find better results with the other two.
My potato diet was.
But if you really like pasta, then, you know, don't even listen.
Was good for me, and I would never encourage anybody to just eat potatoes, do what I did, but I think what I did, hopefully it'll show you that there is a lot of nutrition in potatoes, and you can make it a big part of your diet. Really, two things happened why sort of the reputation of the potato fell apart. One is these high protein, low carb diets. I mean, they just went gangbusters, and quite frankly, you know, the potato industry got hit hard. Fresh potato sales dropped like a rock when these high protein, low carb diets came out, and it really affected sales. It really affected the amount of acres that were planted. But then something happened. I think people realized that, you know, that's just not healthy living.
No. Luckily, people aren't doing. That's good to hear.
It's not healthy eating bacon at every meal or steak at every meal. And people slowly came back to potatoes. So we're actually starting to see kind of a rebound in fresh potato sales. But, you know, quite frankly, you know, one of the things that we struggle with in the potato industry and sort of the image that we have is that people associate, you know, fast food with the potato or French fries. And while, you know, French fries are actually just fresh potatoes that have been cooked in usually a healthy oil, like a canola oil.
Actually, vegetable oils are the worst oils for you. Not that I'm advocating for oil at all.
Trans fats or anything like that. But we as Americans just have access to them at every meal, it seems like, and that's the problem. It's not necessarily the French fry that's the problem, it's the diet. We're just eating too many other fats with those French fries, and that's what we have to be concerned about. So don't demonize the potato because of the French fry. You got to really.
All right, I think I'm going to leave it on that. This is a perfect note to leave it on. Anyway, if you like this video, if you like your potatoes, let me know down below. Like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next video.